Hey everybody, Taylor Lyles with the Greenville Home Builders Association, and this is the Think Big podcast. All right, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the next edition of the Think Big podcast. Today we've got a super special guest and board member of the HBA of Greenville, Bryn Brutosky. Bryn, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Tell everybody listening kind of who you are, what you do, kind of how you got here.
Yeah, so been a board member for the HBA a number of years now, 3 or 4, I believe, and sat in a number of different seats with committees. And currently on the employment side, I'm with Fairview Home COO, and loving what we're doing over there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Perfect. So tell me kind of, I know not many people know, tell me your previous roles. Tell me kind of how you got to the COO position of Fairview Custom Homes.
Yeah, so, and I'll give you a quick snapshot of the progression because I've been in a few different industries. So out of college, went right into financial advising. So I was in the financial realm for a number of years. That was a ton of fun, but it was a tough time. Started that in 2008. So coming out of college, selling securities in one of the worst markets in the history of the country was a bit challenging. But really enjoyed it, learned a lot. That was a ton of fun. Went into technology after that and was in technology for quite a few years. Greenville, I don't know, there's a lot of people in this industry that don't know. I mean, Greenville has a good bed of technology hub in downtown Greenville with Next Building and a lot of startups. So spent some time there and then transitioned into real estate, joined Ryan Homes and was with them for a number of years. And then did a short stint in general brokerage, ran a general brokerage company in Greenville for a couple of years and then went back to Ryan Homes. And so was with Ryan Homes cumulatively about 9 years.
Okay.
And then recently met Drew, who you've had on the podcast.
Yep.
Shared quite a bit about Fairview. He's the one of the owners and CEO of Fairview. He and I met here, right at this table, within the HBA, and got into conversation and recently joined Fairview on the custom luxury side.
Yep.
And that's been a really fun transition. Whole new world of challenges.
I was about to say, completely opposite change. We'll dive into that a little bit later in this podcast.
You could not ask for many more differences by staying in the same industry and going into completely different realms. So.
Yeah, I love it. So board member of the HBA, COO of Fairview, kind of dive in. I know people have heard Drew talk about Fairview Custom Homes. What is your take on Fairview? Kind of who's your target audience? Where y'all building? Just to remind new listeners.
Yeah, so Fairview builds almost exclusively in the Cliffs community, the 7 Cliffs communities. I know Drew went into that a little bit, but I mean, absolutely amazing communities in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains between North Carolina and South Carolina. And so it's luxury custom in the 1.5-2 million range and up, ranging on the specific client. And we do build outside the Cliffs on occasion, but that is truly our target market. So that's our main focus with Fairview.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So bread and butter for the Fairview, again, just to remind listeners, kind of Mountain Park. Where are you majority building right now?
So we do build in all 7 of the communities. That said, our office is right off of Highway 11, right down the road from the entrance to Mountain Park, and that's by design. It's actually the old Cliffs building. That's where the Cliffs originated, the corporation.
Really?
Jim Anthony's office was right there off of Highway 11, so we were in that old office, actually.
I never knew that.
Yeah, yep. And so that, by design, gives us a great launching pad into all 7 locations, but the proximity to specifically Mountain Park, Glassy and Valley is really good, and then we can shoot down 11 towards the lake region, and we have great access there as well, and we have a number of projects going on the lakes. And then we also, I should have mentioned this, but the Cliffs specifically is our main focus, but we also build in the reserve as well, one of the offshoot developments that's occurred on the lakes.
Yep.
Again, same kind of price point, product line, luxury custom. And so we have a project going there currently and some more potentials. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
I already said one fantastic for this podcast, so I'm sure I'm going to get slack
Few
from
more in there.
somebody. Yeah, we'll get 10 more in there. So let's dive into kind of one of the main topics I wanted to talk to you about. So production, luxury custom, two completely different worlds, a large corporation to a family-owned business. Dive into the differences, and I completely understand that Ryan Homes is this product line and Fairview is this product line. But dive into the differences that you've seen in the time you've been at Fairview of what you see.
Yeah. So great question, and there's a lot. There is a lot. And so the way I've been, because as I've gotten into Fairview and really immersed myself in their world and their culture, because there's a lot of differences, the way I've been describing it is, Fairview started as a one-man shop. It was Steve Hamlin, Drew's father, that started the organization about 20 years ago. And so it's no longer Steve out there building 1, 2, 3 homes a year. It's now developed into a sizable organization with scale, with a really sizable client base and numerous project managers, et cetera. But it's not a corporate environment either. It's not 50, 100 plus employees out there on scale. And so what I like to call it affectionately, not in a negative way, is the messy middle. And a lot of organizations fall into that category, that kind of messy middle where everybody has to be pulling in the same direction. Everybody has to be really tied into the culture and what you're doing and creating that absolutely amazing client experience, because that's what everything's driven off of. And so it's a really fun environment. And it's not a negative on the smaller, what I'll call a mom and pop shop, or the large corporate environments, because they all come with pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses. But it's a really fun environment. And what that allows us to do is really create a very unique client experience. And that's what drives the luxury market. And so the longer I'm there, the more I've recognized, starting with Steve and then carrying that with that tradition with Drew and his brother Chris, who both are involved in the organization. They've carried that legacy of great client experience. That's what drives the organization. It's that not just beautiful home, fit and finish, high quality, all of that. It's the relationship. Yep. And a lot of organizations talk about relationships. A lot of talk about client experience. It's hard to deliver. It truly is. And it requires boots on the ground, care, concern, time, all the things that really matter to those relationships. And they've done it really well. And so what I've seen as I've come into the organization is that, again, back to the messy middle, we've got that scale, we've got the great client relationships. Let's put some guardrails on it. Let's put some of those systems and processes that the corporate environment really benefits from into that messy middle to really fine-tune and streamline a lot of things and enhance not just the client experience, but the employee experience.
Yep.
Really build that culture and continue to grow it. That's got a great foundation.
Builders, trades, realtors. If you're looking for a flooring partner you can trust, look no further. I'm here to tell you about All About Flooring. All About Flooring is a family-owned business with 3 generations of owners that know the flooring business inside and out. They work in residential and commercial projects for both new builds and remodels by providing high-quality customer service and installation for carpet, area rugs, hardwoods, laminate, luxury vinyl, and more. Y'all, they even provide professional carpet, tile, and upholstery cleaning. At All About Flooring, they're more than just a flooring provider. They're your partner in delivering top-tier results that your customers will absolutely love. You can find their website linked in the show notes or visit their 9,000 square foot showroom at 2111 North Pleasantburg Drive. Now, let's get back to the show.
I think from a smaller luxury custom builder, I think one of the biggest and one of the hardest things to accomplish is that client communication and managing client expectation.
Yep.
Because when you get in design phase, pie in the sky kind of concept, and their mindset just grows, and there's oh, well, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this. And in that client's mind, they don't hear could. They hear, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. But they're not processing through, how's that going to affect my budget? So I think one of the biggest things, and you just hit the nail on the head, and I think that's a great analogy of the messy middle, because I think a lot of our semi-production to luxury custom builders are kind of floating in that right now, trying to figure out, all right, I got to 5 million myself. I know I can get to 7, but what do I need to have in place to get to 10?
Yep.
And then from there, how do I need the organizational structure to be in place to get to 15, 20? Where do I want to stop this?
Yep.
So I think it all starts with getting those processes and procedures in place and managing that client expectation. Because one thing that I will agree with you on production is they do a really good job of communicating through the process.
Yep.
Because they've got the campaigns, they've got a drip campaign set up that delivers them weekly emails. I know one thing that Ryan Holmes thrived in was bonbon videos to clients.
Yep, it's a big push.
Other production builders doing the same thing.
Yep.
Now, you're not going to have that same process from a production builder that you're going to apply, but some of the same principles. So I think that's a huge thing, and I'm glad that you touched on that. But yeah, I think it is the definition of the messy middle.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been there 4 months, and in that 4 months, it's just truly been eye-opening, because I had my own perceptions of what I potentially was getting into, having spent almost a decade in the production world. And really, Ryan Holmes does a fantastic job of delivering that product to that market.
Yep.
And so what that was going to translate into was a big unknown. And so the biggest unknown in my mind coming into it was you can have anything you want, literally, to whatever degree it's physically possible and your budget allows, you can have whatever you want.
There's the key.
It is really challenging to sit with an individual and say, you can have whatever you want, and now here's the guardrails.
Yep.
This is what's possible within that realm of, so much possibility. And setting good expectations and staying on budget. Budget creep is a real thing in that space.
Yep.
And budget creep is a destroyer of relationships. And so again, you mentioned it, but that expectation setting and then the communication throughout the process, crucial to being able to arrive. I call it the bookends on either end of the experience. People, whether it's regardless of the industry, your relationship is really defined by those bookends when it comes to a transaction. So what is the first impression, and what are the closing elements to the experience? And everything in the middle matters. It matters, and you have to be consistent. But if you can really bookend it really well, and when you're talking about production, you're talking about anywhere from a 45-day to 4 to 5 month relationship.
Yep.
Relatively speaking. In our world, that's 14, 18, 20 plus months. We're talking about years of a relationship that you're maintaining.
Yeah, so you're creating a relationship that's going to withstand the test of time, but not only the test of time, that amount of time.
Yep. And being consistent throughout is absolutely crucial.
I think you're again right on point with the bookend concept, because truly those little tiny slip-ups throughout the process, or a miscommunication on a design, or something small that quickly gets forgotten about. They're going to focus on, man, I really liked meeting this luxury custom builder. And they're going to focus on, man, through it all, I'm very pleased with my house. I'm very thankful for the builder. And it was a good process. May not have been great, but it was a good process.
Yep.
And I think that's, again, where a lot of luxury custom builders, there are a few that have figured it out. They know the process. They know the communication. They know kind of how to deliver the product in that $1 million to $2 million, 2 to 5, and 5 plus range.
Yep.
And they've got it customized for everybody, and they know how to deliver it, and they know the end result of what that client experience is going to be.
Yep.
But I think that there's a large majority of luxury custom builders that are kind of floating, going, Oh, well, we do onboarding with a new client and setting up the interior design, whether it's external or in-house. We do that really well. And then we just had a designer on the podcast. Once you bring that designer in, that's a one more layer that you've added to it. But some designers can stay within budget, some kind of go outside of it just because the client, maybe that's the client's desire, but when they initially started the conversation with the builder, that they weren't spending $5 million. They were spending $3.5 million.
Well, you're touching on something here that I think, again, go outside the industry. This is a challenge of what we're referring to as that messy middle. But when you're a mom and pop shop, the customer relationship is you. It's the owner. It's the individual who's delivering the product and the experience directly. Steve Hamlin, founding this organization and starting it out, he was the person with every individual through every step of the process. Taking Steve and replicating him isn't physically possible as of yet, but taking who he is as far as the culture of the organization and replicating within the people that are now delivering that end experience is the essence of what we need to do. And so it really comes down to a culture conversation. It's replicating the culture systematically to deliver the experience, and then you're touching on the design side. That becomes really complex. It becomes, because the design is so integral to whether it's architectural design, site design, interior design. All of these elements become part of it. And so again, now you're replicating culture outside, and so you cannot scale, even in the luxury. I mean, certainly in the luxury custom side, without replicating the culture, without delivering that consistent experience through the relationships internally first before we go external.
So we're talking in two forms of culture by not only forming your internal company culture, you're also forming a culture of the client experience and client management.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yep. And it's a trickle-down effect.
Yep.
And profit can't get lost in the equation, because ultimately you still have to deliver a product at a price that allows for the profitability to extend the longevity of the organization.
Correct.
And so, you can always manipulate, and I'll use that word manipulate, because it's not strategic. It's manipulation to drop price or increase your employee cost. Customers are happy if you drop price, and employees are happy if you pay them above market value. But that's not a sustainable culture either.
Correct.
And so you have to find a way to deliver everything through the relationship.
Let's get real for a second. Are you dumping money into marketing but barely seeing any results? Go Digital can help. Using their marketing matrix, they zero in on your target audience and engage them where it matters the most. Go Digital acts as your full-service marketing team, saving you the hassle and cost of building an entire in-house team or trusting random gurus you found on the internet. It is also important to note that they don't just serve home service businesses. They own one. They've been in your shoes. They know what works because they've lived it. Wondering why I know so much about them? It's because I've been a client for them over a year, and I couldn't be happier with the results. So if you're ready to start winning more leads for less, hit the link in the show notes and schedule a free 20-minute consultation today.
So kind of pigtailing off of the relationship comment, one of the big things that we thrive at the association for is building relationships and members using members. Let's talk about kind of how the association can be so impactful for whether you're production, semi-production, semi-custom, or even luxury custom. Let's talk kind of from your standpoint now, being in the COO position of a luxury custom, but also the position at Ryan Homes. Let's talk about those relationships and how the association can benefit you from it.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. And, as we were getting ready to have this conversation, I specifically asked, Taylor for some questions ahead of time, which he did not provide me, which was super fun. So, but no, he was saying, we might talk about this, but I don't want to provide questions. I want this to be a genuine conversation, which I appreciate. But in preparation for that, as I was thinking through the progression and knowing we might talk a little bit about the transition and the differences, I was trying to think of a good analogy for this. And I'll use the personal side on the career development. I mentioned I went from finance to technology to the building industry, or it was real estate, but it was industry specific to building. And that progression all occurred through network. There was never a transition in my career where I just went out and blanketed organizations with resume, or just went throwing, I don't want to say throwing a dart, but it wasn't that just, I think that might be a good opportunity and that organization sounds great and I'll just apply, kind of a scenario. Every single transition I made was through a conversation, through a network. So right out of college, when I was starting as a financial advisor, I joined the Rotary. I heard it was a great network. I was involved in the Rotary for almost a decade. And what a fantastic network, and an international network. That led to numerous connections and relationships. It started selfishly as I was trying to build my business, but what I quickly realized was there was power in that network. Once I got into this industry, I quickly got involved in the HBA thanks to Ryan Holmes. Ryan Holmes has been very involved in this organization for many years. And so that became a new network I started to build. And that ultimately led to some other relationships. And so that's, I think, is a good thing from a career standpoint. But to your point, organizations are in a similar way. They kind of mirror that same process. Organizations grow through relationships and they die by relationships. If you don't have the right person to call to solve a problem, whether it be the right contractor, vendor, marketing team, and then the next question you have to ask yourself, do I have the network? But then what's the quality of the network? Are the individuals that I'm being referred to going to be able to provide what I need to support the organization's growth, to support the employees' experience? To all of those things trickle down from the quality of the network. And so one of the things as I was reflecting about that was just the sheer importance of connecting into a group of individuals that in a reciprocal way are going to support each other. And it's counterintuitive because we're all here to make money. We're all here to grow our businesses, and that sounds very selfish. But when I think Ben Mosley said it the best, I think one of your first podcasts with him, he's a past president, he said it, I don't know if he said it on the podcast, but I heard him say it numerous times, the HBA, the value of the HBA is directly correlated to what you're willing to put into it. If you participate, if you step into serving others and providing value, you inherently will get value back. And I think this is a powerful network, and it's only grown not just in numbers, but in quality over the past 5 years in particular that I've been involved.
Yeah, I think the association, we always promote members using members, and that's great, but that only goes so far. You showing up to events, you connecting with not just business related people that you're looking to get business from, but you connect with a realtor, you connect with a lender, you connect with a builder, you connect with a painter, drywall, whatever. The referral network that you get in organizations like the association come back to you tenfold because you're there, you're present, you attend, you're still top of mind to that drywall guy that's like, oh, well, I just saw Bryn at that event. I saw him at the event before and the event before. Why don't y'all give him a chance? He's a luxury custom builder. So you create that and it just starts snowballing. So that's that. I'm glad to hear you kind of view it the same way, because that's what we truly promote internally to new members coming on board is, the association does 80 plus events throughout the year, over 1,000 members, but that's great as long as you utilize the association.
Yeah. Well, and it's end of the year. We're about to move into 2025. I'm kind of in the annual goal setting, vision casting, annual planning kind of mode right now. And, it doesn't happen accidentally. Nothing. If things are happening accidentally because of poor planning, that is a plan.
Yep.
And the inverse is also true. And I think one of the things that you've done really well within the organization is you've developed that vision each year. And in the same way, as we're sitting here, whether developing careers, whether building businesses, or whatever that is, put intentionality behind that. If you don't invest the time, it takes time and effort to be here and be present, whether it's at the HBA or at the gym or at wherever you want to develop yourself or your business, or you've got to put intentionality behind it.
Yep.
And it sounds really simple, and I know it's kind of cliche, but it's so true, and it's just top of mind right now for me, where whatever time you invest into that particular area and whatever area it is in 2025 is going to determine what kind of results you get.
Yep.
So
speaking of 2025, in your mind, where do you see the market going?
I do not have the crystal ball. I would love if I did. As far as trend lines, though, I think there was a lot of apprehension around the election, I think naturally. And regardless of who was elected, I think people just wanted to know what's next, as far as at least that seat, because there was just so many ripple effects. In particular, I think this particular election cycle, there was just a lot of ripple effects regardless. And I think what we saw on our side was post-election, I'm not going to suggest floodgates opened, but conversations restarted. A lot of people that were on the sidelines got back into conversation. I think at certain price points, production, for example, your correlation to interest rates is, you can draw a line between every quarter interest rate change, up or down, is going to really affect the number of people in the market because of their buying power. In my world now with Fairview, it's market reactions. So those individuals aren't as affected by interest rates, they're affected by the general market and market going up, market going down. And so what we would hope, as I'm looking at 2025, is that we have continued stability and growth in the market. And as that occurs and inflation cools, interest rates can start to come back down a little bit. Yep. They needed to bring them up to really slow that inflation. And that's occurred. And I think we're starting to stabilize on both sides. And so I would love to see a really strong 2025. I think we're positioned well for that. Don't have the crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. We're going to get hit with some unknowns that's going to happen.
Yep.
What they are and where they come from, we don't know. But I'm really encouraged to head in the new year.
Well, I think going into it, all indicators kind of show a positive. I mean, builder sentiment's up, volume coming in on lead generation's up. Powell in February is talking about 125 basis point drop. That's huge.
Yep.
It's also terrifying. 125 basis points is a lot,
Yep.
especially when you're adjusting a quarter basis point over the past 2-3 months and you're already seeing a huge uptick.
Yeah.
You know, from our standpoint, I know our housing market forecast is January 23rd.
Yep.
Which this will air right before it. If you haven't got your tickets, be sure to go to hbaofgreenville.com.
That is one of the best events of the entire year, at least for the data nerds in the group like myself. Yeah. So,
Bryn, you always tell me, Taylor, I need that. I need that information. Email it to me. And typically, I love John, and John's incredible, and his content is great. John will get me the information by Monday following. But, you know, the housing market forecast, everything we're pulling together is truly, I mean, it's positive. Like, it's to the point that it's almost scary how much of an uptick our market specifically could feel.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a great point. Yeah.
33 people move in here a week right now. You've got the influx, and the price point is not necessarily your 225 to 275,000 buyer. It's your 500,000 plus, and the million market is going, cool, we're coming in, I want $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million house, because they're not affected by interest rates, they're not affected necessarily by tariffs, they're not affected necessarily by, this lot price just went up $50,000. They're not affected by that.
Yep.
Because they're paying cash.
Yep.
They know what cash they have. They know how much they want to spend. And in some situations, they're willing to go, hey, my budget's 3.5, but man, I really want that swim deck, and I really want these cabana pool or this cabana chairs. I really want this, so I'll give you another $1 million.
Yeah.
Due to the way my bank account is set up, I don't understand that mindset, so I'm still trying to understand it.
Yep, different world.
Yeah.
Well, but I also think, there's a lot of reasons individuals move to the upstate of South Carolina. And I think that the long-term value of what the upstate holds is still there. A lot has changed. You've been here a long time. I've been here 30 years. You've been here longer than me. And most of the individuals in the upstate are relos. And they're coming from places that they were leaving something, whether it be weather, whether it be taxes, there was something they were leaving, is the majority.
Yep.
There's also a lot of things that are naturally drawing, though. It's not just a leaving something, it's coming to something. And the upstate offers so much. It truly does. The key is, I think you were talking a little bit about this with Jason Zacher, one of your other guests, about how do we plan for that growth strategically.
Yep.
And do it the right way, so that we don't lose the essence of what is the upstate in the process of it growing. And there's a lot of moving parts to that, and you're much closer to it than I am. But the reality, though, is it's happening, and we need to be continuing to prepare for that, because I don't see it slowing up anytime soon. But how we go about doing it's going to be really important.
That is 100% accurate. I think the big thing is what's so compelling about the upstate is you still have a small town feel with it. You're 30 minutes from the mountains.
Yep.
You're 3.5 hours from the coast. You got a river running through the middle of downtown.
Yep, with a beautiful bridge.
With a beautiful bridge. When they decided to take down the bridge, it was a actual road bridge, and they converted it to a walking bridge for people that are listening from out of state or just don't know about downtown Greenville. When they did that, everybody was very hesitant. Very hesitant. Oh, we don't need a bridge. We don't need this. We still need to be able to drive up Falls Drive. Well, the visionaries in '96 said, no, we're gonna make this a focal point of downtown, and it truly transformed, and it created an atmosphere that people want to be involved in.
Yeah.
Now, the hardest part is, and this is not everybody, when people move here, they get so attached to it that they're afraid for more people to move here because they're too afraid of it changing.
Yep.
And I know I've talked about that a lot in the Think Big podcast, but my only request for people moving here is just keep an open mind. We created a lot for you, so
yeah,
we can't say yes to you and no to somebody else who has the same amount of money or has this or has that or has the same desire to move into the upstate.
Yeah, that's a great point. And my mind immediately went. I don't know if you've read the book, and I'm not even sure the author on it, but it was written about Tommy Weish, one of the, I'll call him a founding member of the growth world, the growth season of Greenville and the upstate. And Tommy Weish, he was an attorney. He did an amazing job of connecting the dots between preservation, and he had an amazing vision about preservation, much like when he had passion for the outdoors. He helped in the preservation of countless areas that are now our parks and our Caesar's Head and Jones Gap and some of the just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of preservation, while also seeing vision for development and understanding where it should go and why and what we can create through strategic development, through smart development, through minimizing footprint, but also creating livability. I mean, those types of things. It's a great book to read. It was gifted to me a number of years ago, and I got a lot out of it. But the point I'm making, though, is that type of vision doesn't happen accidentally, and it doesn't necessarily. I'd actually even suggest it's negative. I want to be if it comes from a political side. The political bend has its own agenda. It's the individuals who can stand in the gap between growth, between politics, between geographic locations, between all the things that impact the long-term vision of what we can create here. Because you're right, we have something special, all the way down to the weather. I mean, it's just a unique place. And so it's going to take some individuals, and I think we're starting to see some of those individuals come into their own. And Knox White was a huge contributor. Max Heller mentioned Tommy Weish. There's been in that season, we had some really remarkable leaders, and they were able to connect those dots, and they did a really good job. We need that next generation of leaders, those individuals that have the influence, but also have the vision, and they understand the balance. It's the balance, because it's not about destroying parks or green space, and it's not about just being a developer or a builder. It's about finding the middle ground and being strategic. So
yeah, I think everybody has a different idea of balance. So if you are listening to this podcast, Bryn just called you out. He's looking for new visionary leaders.
Yep.
So step up, take the role, come out and be a voice.
be involved.
Yep.
I mean, that's where, because again, the HBA, you work on our behalf on the builder side to specifically support those businesses. But I've been at the table with numerous conversations where, and again, I'll put myself in this bucket. I use our parks constantly. I'm camping, hiking, fishing with my son, mountain biking, if you name it, I've been involved in the past 30 years. I don't want to see that go away.
Correct.
I want to see it thrive. I want to see the next generation. I want my son to be involved in those things. He can't do that if Paris Mountain trails go away, that's the reality of my life. So if it's a reality for me, I know it has to be for some others.
For a lot of people.
And I'm in the building industry.
Yep.
And so you're finding that balance, because it is defined in different ways.
Yep.
But for me, it's defined very clearly. Do we have our spaces to go enjoy the outdoors? But the reality is that it might not be all of the area. It might not be all of Piedmont, all of Easley, all of Anderson, all of Spartan. It can't be. So
Correct.
we need to be strategic.
Yep. So, starting to wrap up this podcast, I know we've covered a lot of content. One big thing, and again, from a production to a luxury custom builder, what advice would you give someone considering building new construction? So they're getting into the market, whether their budget is $250, $450, $500, $750 million plus. What is the one thing that you wish every potential home buyer knew?
That is a hard one, because there's a lot of things. I say that in jest. The reality, though, is that, and I remember the first home I bought. My wife and I, we've bought and sold quite a few homes over the years, and I've built as well. The hard part about this industry, from a consumer standpoint, is the unknowns. It's not an easy transaction. There's so much emotion tied into it. And so having trusted advisors through the process is crucial. And we are fortunate, because in the Upstate, we have some really good builders. Nobody's perfect. No organization is perfect. And we had a saying at Ryan Homes, this is raw material, natural materials being touched by human hands, things are going to go wrong.
Yep.
And so from a consumer standpoint, and that's only extrapolated in the luxury custom side because of the customization. But ultimately what I would say is come into that process with reasonable expectations. I think, and I truly believe this, that the majority of builders out there want to do a good job. They do.
I would agree with that.
They want to do it at a reasonable cost. They need to make their profit, but I haven't seen massive gouging. People aren't being, going out there and trying to crush the market. That's not good for anybody. But it is hard to manage expectations. And so come into it with your eyes wide open and just recognize it's a process and be patient, because there's a lot of motion in the process.
That is, I feel like that's an understatement. So kind of the key takeaways from this podcast: creating culture, but not just internally.
Yep.
With your staff. It's creating culture with your client expectation and client management. Visionary leaders. We're calling them all out.
Yep.
Let's get it.
Let's go. Seriously, we need some individuals stepping up, and I think it's starting to happen, but I don't want to be presumptuous.
Let's get them all at the table and kind of have a round table. Kind of like I told Jason, I want everybody who is working to grow or even maintain or conserve or change. I want us all to get at a table. We're not going to agree on everything, but that's the beautiful part of life. We don't have to.
Yep.
But we can all voice our opinions, come to one general consensus, and truly watch this area thrive. And then the third thing is coming to new construction with kind of an open mind, open heart concept that things are going to change, things are going to come up, and just kind of be mindful. I love it.
It's a great summary.
Well, perfect. Well, Bryn, thank you for your time today. This was fantastic. Next time we'll have you back. We'll do bourbon and cigars, like a full-on.
Sign me up.
Like a full-on Joe Rogan style. I told several builders I want to do like a builder roundtable and video the whole thing.
Oh, that could be fun.
Out on the back
do a 3-hour episode.
Yeah. I wonder if our listening rate would actually die down. It's hard to listen to a 3-hour podcast. But no, thank you for taking your time.
Absolutely.
We
Thank you
greatly
for all
appreciate
you're
it.
doing.
You heard it here. Bryn Brutosky, COO of Fairview Custom Homes. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe and follow. Be sure to put on your calendars February. Oh, Lord.
It's coming up quick.
I'm mixing up my dates. February 21st, 22nd, 23rd is the Southern Home and Garden Show. If you comment on the link in the bio, or if you comment in the Instagram section, we'll get you free tickets. Be sure to come out and join us. Thanks for listening to the Think Big podcast. If you can do me 2 big favors, if you can subscribe to the podcast to continue getting updates whenever new podcasts drop, and also if you can scroll to the bottom of the page and just give this podcast a review. We want to continue pushing it out to more people, sharing what we're talking about, and educating more people in the building industry. I would also like to say a huge thank you to 2 of our sponsors, All About Flooring and Go Digital. If you're interested in sponsoring the Think Big podcast for 2025, be sure to reach out to the HBA of Greenville today. Thanks.